Good morning, students. We were discussing the second chapter, the end of bipolarity, and in our last class, we have discussed disintegration of USSR and the causes of disintegration and the consequences of disintegration. So, the process of disintegration, whatever process they applied during the disintegration, we will discuss that today. And the topic is shock therapy in post-communist regime. Shock therapy. Shock. What is shock? We all know what is shock. We usually get shock from electricity, right? All of you must have gone through that experience that how does it feel, right? How can we feel when we have shock? Similar is the case with USSR, but this is a different type of shock. This is not electrical shock, but this is a different type of shock which the common people of USSR as well as the country has to face. The USSR or the Soviet Union almost destroyed because of this shock. So we will discuss what is shock therapy. The collapse of communism was followed in most of these countries by a painful process of transition from an authoritarian socialist system to a democratic capitalist system. The model of transition in Russia, Central Asia, and East Europe that was influenced by the World Bank and the IMF came to be known as shock therapy. Shock therapy varied in intensity and speed amongst the former Second World countries, but its direction and features were quite similar. So, the shock therapy. Shock therapy actually means the transition of communism or socialism to capitalism. The process of transition or the transformation, because we have already discussed USSR was a socialist country, and the USSR, whoever were the member of USSR, member countries of the USSR, they wanted to transform themselves into a capitalist country. Initially they were socialist. So the process of transition or the process of transformation from socialist to capitalist is called a shock therapy. The common people or the state, they got a huge shock when the process was going on during that period, when the process of transition, when they were transforming themselves from socialism to capitalism, they got a huge shock. So the answer, what is shock therapy, is shock therapy is the transition from communism or socialism to capitalism. Now we will discuss the process of shock therapy. What has happened during that period when they were transforming themselves into capitalism. First of all, everything has been privatization. Whatever state assessed, whatever things were there, whatever industries, whatever was there which has been controlled by the state, everything has been transforming into private ownership or the private property. Agriculture, farms, whatever farms were there, whatever agriculture were there which has been controlled by state, they were also becoming private farming. They were also becoming capitalist in agriculture. Economy was transforming into capitalism, state ownership, privatization. That was one of the process. Everything has been privatized during that period. So in order to have that privatization, second point, in order to have that privatization, they open free trade or free foreign investment. Now the Western country, whoever are rich, whoever have money, they can invest their money in that particular area or wherever this privatization is going on. They all the Western country have the right to invest, because the USSR or the Soviet Union has introduced open free trade or open foreign investments. If the foreigners are investing their money, like for example in our particular city also, if foreigners come and they invest something, like for example they built one industry, one factory over here, and they have invested their money in order to build that factory, then the workers will be there, everything will be provided by the foreigners. Now the profit goes to foreigners only. right? So this is the case with USSR also. There was a foreign investment in their country, in USSR. So the Western countries are investing their money, so profit were also taken by them. There was free trade, there was free business between the USSR and the Western countries. That is second point. And the third point is, whichever country were there in USSR, whichever member country were there, they did not want it to have a direct link between each other. As we have discussed that there were 15 other countries in USSR. So these 15 countries do not want it to have a direct relationship with each other. Rather, they wanted to have a direct relationship with the Western countries. So these countries, they were having a good relationship or a link directly to the West countries in order to have trade, in order to have business, in order to have capitalism, in order to have privatization. So this is the process of shock therapy. Shock therapy means transition from communism to capitalism. Initially they started from economy, from farming, state assets, everything has been privatized. Then they started free trade, foreign investment, that is the second point. And the third point, they were not having a direct relationship with each other, they were having direct relationship with the West. Now we will discuss the consequences, result of the shock therapy, what happened during that process. First of all, the result, this shock therapy brings with them economic, this shock therapy brought ruin to economies and disaster upon the people of the entire region. Because of this shock therapy, every common people have to suffer a lot. They were having so many problems. This process of transition was not a simple one and not the easy one. All of them have to suffer a lot. This transition brings disaster with it. First of all, in Russia, a large state-controlled industrial complex almost collapsed as about 90% of its industry were put up for sale to private individuals and companies. Now, in Russia, whatever industries were there, the state-controlled industry, initially those industries were controlled by state. Now, when there was a process of transition, these industries, almost 90% of industries have been put into sale to the private ownership or the private companies or the private individuals. These industries, whichever industries were there, the big industries, they have been put on sale. Though common people, every common people got the voucher to participate in that sale. Even the common people could have buy those industries, but the common people, they were in need of money, so they sold their vouchers to the people, to the rich people, in order to have money. So this sale of industries, the 90% of industries, has never happened in history. This was called the largest garbage sale in history. This 90% of industries which has been put into sale in Russia, this is known as the largest garbage sale in history, because this has never happened in history. Even the common people had the right to participate, they can also buy those industry, but they were already in need of money, so the common people just sold their vouchers to the rich people in order to have money. That is first point, consequences, result. Second point is that the currency, the Russian currency is ruble. So the value of the ruble, the Russian currency, declined dramatically. The value of the money has been declined in Russia. The collective farm system disintegrated, leaving people without food security. There was scarcity of food in Russia, and Russia started to import food. People do not have anything to eat. There was scarcity of food. Russia has to import food to the common people. During the process of transition, people do not even have anything to eat. Just imagine the situation of that citizen of that particular area. The real GDP of Russia in 1999 was below what it was in 1989. GDP means gross domestic product. The price of the real GDP of Russia, which has been in 1999, was very much less than 1989. In 1989, Soviet Russia was a socialist country. After 10 years in 1999, Soviet Russia was in the process of transition, in the process of capitalism. During that era, its real GDP has been much less than the previous one. This is the second point. Currency decline, scarcity of food, and the GDP. Third point is that the old system of social welfare was systematically destroyed. Social welfare, because the state were doing those welfare programs. They were looking after the common people. They were looking after the situation of the state. Now this social welfare has been destroyed completely. People have been put to poverty. Many people, they have been put into poverty. They become very poor at that time. Many mafias has been emerged during that period, and these mafias try to control the poor people, and many people have to migrate from Russia. Many people has to migrated from their own country in order to have a job, in order to have food, in order to have money. So the third point is social welfare has been destroyed completely. People were put in poverty. Many people have been now in poverty level. Many people have migrated to other country in order to get jobs, in order to have money. Many mafias emerged during that period, and this brought in Russia the division between the rich and the poor. There is a vast differences between the rich and the poor. Russia were divided between rich and poor regions. Unlike the earlier system, there was now great economic inequality between the people. There was economic inequality. Initially, in a socialist country, there will be economic equality. Every people are common. Every people have the same amount of money. Every people have the same amount of property, right, in a socialist system. But in a capitalist system, it's natural that there will be a division between the rich and the poor. So Russia now was also in that situation where there was a division of rich and the poor. Third is that fourth, the construction of democratic institution was not given up the same attention and priority as the demand of the economic transformation. Now, whichever country wanted independence during that period, they wanted to have democratic capitalism. Democracy should be there. So, in a democratic country, constitution is required. So, the construction of democratic institution was not given. They did not give much attention to the constitution during that period. They did not give much attention to the democracy. The constitution of all the countries were drafted in a hurry, and most, including Russia, had a strong executive president with the widest possible power that rendered elected parliaments relatively weak. So they have drafted constitution in a hurry. They did not give much importance. So whoever were in power at that time, they have drafted the constitution, and they make the powerful person more. They give the powerful person more power. Like in Russia, the president has the more power than the elected representatives. In Central Asia, the president had great power, and several of them become very authoritarian. They become like dictators in Central Asia because of the drafting of the constitution in a hurry. They gave all the power to the president. So president, if you have all the power, then obviously you become a dictator or authoritarian. Similar is the case with Central Asia. The president of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan appointed themselves to power first for 10 years and then extended it for another 10 years. So These also Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, they also gave power to the president only. They have given 10 years of term, and they have, after that 10 years, they also they even extended their term to again 10 years. There was no opposition because of the constitution, because of the they did not give much importance to the constitution. So democracy has been completely destroyed, completely violated. In a democracy, every common people have the right, every opposition has the right, but these countries whichever were going through the process of transition, they did not give much importance to the democracy. So they drafted the constitution in a hurry, and they gave all the power to the president only. And president now, they are utilizing those power for their own benefit. So this is the process of this is the another impact or the consequences of shock therapy. Lastly, most of these economies, especially Russia, started reviving in 2000, 10 years after their independence. In 2000, they have now they were in the process of gaining their economies 10 years after. The reason for the revival of the most of their economies was the export of the natural resources like oil, natural gas and minerals. They have the natural resources. Russia and many other countries have the natural resources. Now they were selling their natural resources, they were utilizing their natural resources in order to have a controlled economy in their country. Many other countries have gained because of the oil pipelines that cross their territories, for which they get rent. So other countries which were in the middle, uh, they get rent because the pipelines of the oil or the gas, that pipelines crosses their country, so they were getting the rent of that pipelines. Some amount of manufacturing has started. After that, some amount of manufacturing started after 10 years of independence. Now the economies of that particular country started to regain. So this is the consequences of shock therapy. I will again revise the consequences. First consequences, the largest garbage sale, many industries has been put up sale in the private ownership. Common people did not participate. They sell their vouchers in order to have money. Second, economic inequality were there. Currency has been decline of currency, ruble, the Russian currency, scarcity of food. Russia has to import food. GDP has been decreased. Third point is that the people were put into poverty level. Many have migrated to other countries in order to have job. Many mafias were born in that particular time, and this is the time when the country have witnessed a vast differences between a rich and the poor. There was a huge economic inequalities. And the last point is the democracy. The democracy has been completely destroyed. Democracy has been completely ruined. They have drafted the constitution in a hurry, and all the power has been given to the powerful person only, or the president only, so that the president can use all those power for his own benefits only. There was no opposition, there was no rights to the common people. Everything has been controlled by the president, and in some cases presidents become authoritarian also because of the negligence of democracy. This is the process of transition. But after 2000, Russia started to revive their economies, because they were utilizing now the natural resources like gas, oil, and the other countries which they were gaining profit, they were getting rent, or they were getting some economy because of the pipeline, because that pipeline has crossed from their country. So now little bit of manufacturing has been started after the 10 year of independence. So this is the consequences of shock therapy. Now in our next class we will discuss the tension and conflicts and India's role. Then we will complete this chapter. Thank you. Bye bye.